Hey everyone, welcome to The Grind. And if you've just joined us, we are on week 3 where we're studying the book of James. We're talking about, a faith that works. And the topic and focus today would be the power of your words. Pastor Ed shared a sermon last weekend about taming the tongue and how the tongue has the power to direct, destroy, and build up. And also the struggle to control it reveals what's really going on in our hearts. So words can be evidence of the fruit of our faith. And so something to think about is if someone recorded your speech for the entire day, what would it say about your faith? I definitely don't want to hear it. If everyone did that, it would be really full of stupid things or really meh.
Mine would just be full of bad jokes. No.
Or dad too, So anyways, are you more of an oversharer or a think before you speak type of person?
I think calling back to last week's episode, Keith was saying
I always think most of the extrovert people are stupid. Like your words come out of your mouth without going through the brain.
That's what they say about me all the time.
That's me. Yeah, I'm that stereotype. I'm the one who just blubbers everything out. I just verbally think out loud, and then only maybe 60% of it is actually meaningful.
And I'm gonna assume that Keith is a think before he speaks person.
Yep,
he's thinking right now. He's how should I respond to
that? How do I respond to the overshare they just shared just now?
Yeah, but then I think also it depends on what people you're with. So sometimes when I'm with very familiar people, then I tend to overshare as well. Yeah.
And the topic, right?
Yeah, also the topic too.
Oh, you can give anything I'm geeky about. I could go on and on.
Oh yes, try to stop the guy talking about Star Wars. It really is it can be a challenge. Has anyone ever said something to you, good or bad, that you still remember years later?
I think I have both good and bad. The good about me being an overshare, I think I have been told that whenever I go on this on and on and on this flow, that as I'm thinking it, people have told me that it actually helps because it guides them through my train of thought. Because I think I tend to make the error of assuming they know something, so then I talk in that context and they completely miss out. And of course I also receive on the bad end. We're playing this game called We're Not Really Strangers.
Okay.
It's basically I say it's an extrovert's favorite card game. Basically, you ask really deep questions that provoke conversation. And then one of them was I read it. I was what is something I really need to hear? And one of my buddies just said, I think you need to stop and just be quiet and think first.
Wow.
I have never been more humbled.
Zinger. What a zinger.
But
I
yes.
need those cards.
Yeah.
I have good and bad as well. I'm gonna share the bad one. Long story short, is some very big shot record producer tell me to never come back if I leave.
Oh, wow. Now I want to hear the backstory of why he said that.
Yeah, at the end of university, I wanted to find work, right? In music production, in pop music. So I kind of self-introduced myself. To
as you would,
to certain people, and then they said, sure, come at certain night to visit our studio, and you can observe our engineers doing mixing and editing, and I'll be with you in a short while. So, because the original intent from my side was to learn about like strings arrangement in a pop song and learn something, and then so I went there, saw the engineer mix some songs, and then the producer hasn't taught me anything about the string arrangement or whatever. He was just there chatting and observing. And then because in university time I was a very early sleeper, and I still had an essay to work on, and the deadline was the other day, so around 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock I said, okay, I think it's time for me to go. Thank you for the opportunity. I observed some really interesting things here. And then he got really offended, and he took me to another room and said, you are so not passionate. you are so not dedicated. When I was young, I did not sleep. I work in the studio, and then I just take a shower and go back to studying in the university. And so if you leave, you can never come back to here.
Oh.
Like, I haven't even taught you the string arrangement. Like, why do you want to leave? So, yeah.
And this is a hotshot like music producer.
Yeah.
As in, like, I would know him, or
I don't know if you know him, but he's still here.
Oh, he's still here. Oh, okay, well,
I'd share his name. No,
Wow, rude.
but on the positive side, he did really like light up this fire in me to be dedicated and to be hardworking. Just maybe not in this area.
That was, I mean, that's extreme. I mean,
Yeah,
I think definitely, you know, over the years I've seen the power of words, you know, in my life, like what people said, and that helped. Like, I think there are people that say, hey, I see you as a good communicator, or I see you really good. It's not like, you know, in a way, I guess, prophesied over me. It's like, oh, I think you're really good at, you know, I see you working with the youth, and, you know, we all saw that come to pass in my life in the long run. But then I've also had some really detrimental words that's spoken to me that I still remember to this very day. Like, I think one of them said to me was like, oh, you look so much better if you had surgery on your chin.
Thank you for your irrelevant opinion.
Because I have like a little double chin, and so like, I guess no chin. They're like, yeah, you look so much better if you just had this surgery, and I was like, okay. You know, I mean, that's, you know, when you tell it to like a teenager who is already like not exactly the most confident in herself, and then tell that they will look better with surgery, it's a little bit, yeah. So yeah, I still carry that. You know, I'm not holding anything against that person, but still, it's something that I will never forget. And then I think for me, like what I've said, or I mean, I like to think that I've, you know, spoken life to people and encouraged them as well. And I know definitely there have been moments where I've said some stuff, and again, which I still carry with me to this very day, negative stuff that I spoke over people that I regret as well. So, so like I said, the tongue has the power to direct. So let's talk a little bit about that for just a little bit. Let's take a look at James chapter 3, verses 3-4. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they're guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So why do you think small words can have such a big impact on someone's direction?
Because I think even though sometimes we don't want to admit, or I don't want to admit, is people are social animals. And we have this God-given emotion in our lives, so we cannot just follow one instruction and then ignore what everyone say, or ignore what everyone influence on you.
Yeah. I think a very similar thought that like, you know, how the Bible always says that words have power and they could easily sway people and leave an influence. I think I'm also reminded, like, you know, I think like exactly what you said, Pat, about like how, especially when we are young, right? Like like in inner healing, there are so many things that could be like the most innocent thing, but just received the wrong way could like haunt the child till like adulthood. I think words really do have power. Yeah.
Sometimes we don't think much about it, but we think like, oh, it's fine. People could just, you know, pick themselves up and carry on. But like you said, like, you know, something that someone said to me as a teenager, I'm still holding on to this very day. Again, it's not defining me. It's just something that's still seared in my memory. As much as I'd love to like just flick it to the back of my mind, it's something that can be retrieved very easily. As we talked about, that tongue directs, like, how do we use our words to steer others, like with encouragement or control?
You know, personally, I like to encourage people, especially to find out like the part where they're doing well. But then I would also like to master the art of manipulation, because I see many people, like, they always talk about manipulation and acting it out, and people can like do whatever they command. It's very fascinating. Maybe like the FBI or the CIA shows. And but then there's also this Asian thing where it somehow encouragement can spoil someone. The saying is if you compliment someone too much, they're gonna backslide. So maybe in the stereotypical Asian environment is no compliments, no encouragement.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, I think, of course, you know, like as the Gen Z say it, you know, manifest the good vibes.
Oh my.
Like as like low-key cringe that sounds, there is evidence to it that I feel like, you know, if you be encouraging, eventually it will produce good fruits. And same vice versa, if you be like passive aggressive, oh man, you're gonna harvest like bitter fruits as well. So honestly, yeah, what kind of fruit do you want to produce, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know it's been a journey for me in terms of like how to carry my words well. I mean, how to speak my words well, because again, grew up in a not exactly very affirming environment. So words like "I am proud of you," like "good job," it's very foreign, and if I hear it, I also cringe as well, because it's like, did I really do a good job? I mean, because again, I always struggle with like, I'm never good enough, right? So but obviously I want to be that person to encourage, and I think I used to struggle with control in the sense where I want to know everything. I want to be able to just move to pieces and be that person, and so I want to say things that make sure to ensure the correct outcome that I want. But obviously that's a little bit too much. But yeah, we want people who edify, and I've definitely seen people or even watch movies of how, like, you know, people manipulate other people. So I'm like, dang, wow, that is a skill, my dude, to manipulate someone. Or even seeing someone, like, you know, say pieces, like basically like you want person A to get a person to get the point from point A to point B, but obviously you want them to get there naturally. I've seen people like kind of just lay out the questions and lay out the pieces for them to get there. I was like, that is wow, maneuvering. I mean, I was actually impressed. I mean, like, we want person to get to point B, but the fact that they were able to say everything, I was like, man, can I learn that? Like, that is talent right there. But obviously, yeah, like, we don't want to manipulate people. You know, like, I don't like the idea of being manipulated, and so, but definitely, I think sometimes we need to. I don't know if it's manipulation, but sometimes we see a person stuck at this point and we want them to get here. Obviously, to tell them like, yo, you need to get to this point, like, it's not going to work for them. So sometimes we need to also ask and lay out pieces. Like, you know how like we guide the verses, like, you know, the horse, you put the bits and guide them. Sometimes we need to put pieces and questions like, hey, what do you think about this? What if this happens? And for them to kind of naturally come to this point. Again, one might say, is that manipulation or is that pastoral? You know, but I think in my head it's like, hey, my heart is for you to succeed and get to this point, but obviously I can't tell you to do it like that, right? So, yeah, but then some might say, oh, that is manipulation, you know, you're getting them. But again, my heart is for them to.
Yeah, you're just like provoking. It's just a small.
Yeah,
to get them rolling.
Yeah, just like, yay, you know, let's get along, shall we? All right, let's talk a little bit about the tongue destroys. So in James chapter 3 verses 5 to 8, so also the tongue's a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire, as we've seen in the fires in LA. Yeah, it's just like one thing, it just goes on forever. It's wild, right? Like, if you just see it. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staying the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird and reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. So why do you think James compares the tongue to fire and poison?
Wow. I think it because it's so infectious and dangerous, and that it can escalate so quickly.
Yeah.
And also the tactile contact with it is sharp and instant. So it's kind of like the words when you hear it. Yeah. Like, its impact is like right away.
Yeah. Again, well, I'll say also.
Yeah.
And also in the famous words of a famous Benjamin, with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh my God. You know, I was thinking he was going to say Benjamin Franklin for some reason.
I know, that's why I went that way.
I was It happens to be Uncle Ben, who also does great coffee in Fortress Hill. All right. So, okay. How have you seen gossip or callous words damage trust or relationships?
Well, I had a recent incident. It's not necessarily gossip. I think someone meant something, but just delivered it the wrong way and really devalued who I am.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
And yeah, that really rattled me for the whole day.
And how's your relationship with said person?
I have yet to yet to see.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I mean, again, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, but
yeah, well, I would say both sides have their own responsibility. It's related to my university friends. So we are music students, and most of us, our occupation is teaching people musical instruments, and we open our own shops, our own teaching center.
Yeah.
And this friend C, I think it's a bit unwise that he used a very famous German piano maker name, Steinway, as their own teaching center name. And so this started circulating around the music community, and I think that really affected our classmates' relationship. Yeah, so on one side, yeah, we shouldn't gossip and like, so what? But then on the other side, it's a little bit unwise to use like sensitive names like this.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen how in my fit of anger when I've said some stuff to my brother before when I was a kid. Again, stuff that carried with me for a very long time. And I remember calling him a name, and I saw the hurt in his eyes. And he was very young, and I was just so mad at him. I just called him this name. And I was like, wow, I think when I saw that, and I think he probably still remembers it too. As well, because I think he wrote about it in his like journal and went for school or something. But I remember seeing him cry, and I felt broken as well, because I was like, wow, I didn't mean to make that happen. And I think for me, I was like, that was the first instance of like the power of my words, like kind of really destroying someone. And so I want to try to be careful what I say. Obviously, I've slipped and I've fallen. I've said things that I regret, that kind of thing. And recently I think I said some stuff as well that I think I was going through some stuff, and in my state of like despair or just sadness, I said something that I hurt my friend. I mean, she knew that I was going through pain, but then also she was like, okay, wow, hurtful much, but she didn't tell me for the longest time until like much later when I reached out to her just to say like, hey, check in on her. And then she said, hey, so when you said this, it really hurt me, or made me feel really bad. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. So but at that moment, I wasn't thinking about her, I was just thinking about me. So I didn't realize, that's how, it kind of, I guess it wouldn't say damage a relationship, but it definitely had like, a effect on the relationship for a while. And she didn't let me know and until I reached out, I guess. So I think sometimes, if we think about it, the tongue can reveal the condition of our heart too, like what we're feeling, what we're going through. Let's talk about that for just a little bit. So we talked about the tongue directs, the tongue destroys, the tongue delights. If we look at James chapter 3 verses 9 to 12, again, let me quickly read this. With it, the tongue, we bless our Lord, our Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. Thus a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water. Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. So what does our tongue reveal about the condition of our heart or our faith?
Well, if my words are really pessimistic or hurtful or destructive, then my heart is like full of bitterness, and I let the evilness get the better of me. I can share more about the bitterness later. So for example, I always think like businesses are out to get you, something like that.
Yeah.
I think for me is fortunately for me is I guess like through my high school phase I really started developing this disliking for like two-faced people. And so I think that kind of disliking caused me to like not want to be, I don't want to get caught bad mouthing someone behind their back basically. So it kind of fueled me to be good. And I think that I do realize that sometimes you know, at the overflow of your heart the mouth will speak. I do realize that sometimes me being an oversharer, I will accidentally leak something out. And so for me, out of because of that habit, it now encourages me to enforce a good habit of just like always keeping like the plate clean. I feel like every time I have grievance with someone, you know, either deal with it with that person or deal with it with God.
Right.
Because the last thing I want to be is like just actually like just a random like jab I throw at someone. I'm like, oh, that shouldn't have come out.
Yeah. Don't put an overshare of an overknower. The powers combine. It's like, because the overknower is basically someone who just needs to know everything will draw out from the overshare information that the oversharer should not be sharing, and with their powers combined, it is not great responsibility. It's
just instigating each other.
They started the fire.
You fan my flame, I fan yours.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, as I shared earlier, like sometimes like what you speak does show what you feel, what you believe, what you're going through in that season, and but then sometimes like, you know, some people might be like, oh, all joyful and everything, and yeah, maybe it does reflect that, you know, they're still holding trust to the Lord, but maybe there might be some people that are just putting away their grief or their anger and hiding as well. I think you need to be honest with where you're at. I think God has never called us to be overly positive and be like, yeah, forget about your pain, just put it aside and, you know, just, you know, yeah, Jesus. But I think it's you need to process it with the Lord, like, and not obviously just like dump it and leave it aside. We need to surrender to the Lord and like, hey God, like help me in my pain. So like, you know, here's the last question is like, you know, what are the greatest problems you have with your tongue? Like, is there anything that the Lord is highlighting to you about the words that you speak?
I think, have you guys watched Inside Out 2?
Yes, I have.
Have you? I'm basically anxiety, you know, like when a scenario comes up with me, I literally think of every other possible scenario and then try to like brace for that. I feel that also leaks out into my words as well. So I think something that God has been teaching me is this neat thing that like I have certain conversations with my father and vice versa, that sometimes I go to him because I want to receive something. Maybe I go to him because I need to receive comfort. But then the issue is that, you know, his occupation when he was working was he was a project manager. So when I present the problem, I want comfort, but instead he's like, oh, what you should do is do da. And I think in that manner that God has taught me that one thing that I should establish, and this is not just with my dad, maybe with like my girlfriend or everyone else, right, is that like when you go into these kind of conversations, I think you gotta gauge what the conversation is gonna be like. Do you want me to give advice? Do you want me to like comfort you? And for me as an oversharer, right, and me, if a friend is spiraling and they come to me for advice and I'm gonna be like overthinking and like thinking of all the possible scenarios, that's not gonna be helpful. I'm gonna make it worse. So I think I need to know what kind of input they need. So
Yeah.
Well, being a person who think before they speak, I would like to think that my tongue doesn't have any problems, but that would be lying. Because I usually get very angry at what I perceive as injustice or hostility. So, for example, the easiest example to remember is I like to cuss and curse people when I get offended. Yeah, so there's like recently my mother was sharing her experience in the wet market, and so there was this very, very hostile wet market seller, and like her actions are unfriendly, gestures are unfriendly, what she said was unfriendly. So for example, my mother was trying to say, oh, didn't you sell 2 pieces of tofu for $10 last time?
Yeah.
And she was very offended. I never sold $10 for 2 tofu. And then I as I said, I think businesses are trying to get your money. Okay. And I really hate people who lie, or I hate people who lie. So I just curse at the seller and say, well, if you did sell 2 pieces for $10 before, you close down tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
never get on Keith's bad side is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really need to work on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like partially agree with you. Like I want to be like, hey, you did the right thing, but at the same time, like that wasn't the right thing.
I was like, yeah, you go, Keith.
I was like, get him, kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, the moment, it's like, whoo, that feels good. You know, like I've definitely yelled at a driver for trying to take. I mean, I think I shared this before. Like, I yelled at a driver trying to take our spot because I was in a scenario where we're waiting for a car spot, right, and a parking spot, and so I was thinking like, man, what are the odds if this guy came and stole the spot? I would yell at this person, and lo and behold, he actually did. So I just like yelled at him, and I was like, give us our spot back. You know, we've been waiting for this, and then he obviously backed away. Then my dad went ahead and thanked the guy. I was like, Dad, thank the guy and apologize, like. We were in the right. He was in the wrong. I was like, I don't know what this is, but okay. And I was at the moment, I was like, you know what? I'm hungry. You know what? You can. It's fine. Like, I haven't really thought about that before. I know my brother was not happy with that. The fact is that my dad went to, you know, apologize and for thank him. I was like, that is rightfully ours. But then also it just also shows like the side of my dad, like humility, I guess, like and just be like, hey, you know, thank you, like to say thank you and sorry, like to thank him for giving us a spot. I'm like, oh wow, okay, that, I mean, it also takes a lot of, you know. So anyways, but I think like sometimes in my head, like I know the right things to say and I know what to feel. Like I can tell my heart what to feel and what to in the mouth what to say. But then sometimes the feelings gets in the way, and then it just becomes, and then it's like that's not the intent. And yeah, here we are, and sometimes, you know, maybe processing things over text could be easier because then you're not saying things that you regret. But then also you want to not avoid the hard conversations that happen in person. So I think it's like sometimes like what am I fixing my eyes on? And I think in the season, like it's basically fixing my eyes on the Lord in worship, and you know, surrounding myself in that, and being in His presence, to help direct, I guess, the words that I speak, to not let the heart and the head meet and become a hot mess in the form of words, but to be like, all right, Lord, what is it that I should say, or how guide my thoughts, guide my words. Yeah, so I think words is hard, and what was it that Pastor Red said, like, you know, sometimes it takes like 5 negative words, a positive word to negate 1 negative word or something. Like, yeah, I think sometimes it's when you say things that hurt, it goes on for years, and people tend to remember the negative over the positive, which is really sad sometimes. But yeah, I think let's work on being people where people remember us as those who build up and edify, and not break down and destroy. So yeah, all right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the grind, and we'll see you next time. Bye.